Hiya, I'm ThatJaymsWisdom and welcome to And Another Thing. Today we're going to be talking about Justice League and Bojack Horseman. Hiya, so today we're talking about Justice League and Bojack Horseman. I might talk a little bit about a board game as well, depending on how much time this all takes up. I don't really want to make this whole thing a review channel, and I know I did in the previous And Another Thing, I did do a Thor Ragnarok kind of reviewy, breakdowny, explanation-y, whatever you want to call it. But I do want to talk about Justice League today because I saw it on Thursday, the day it came out. I had to see it on a midnight showing just because I couldn't deal with not knowing whether Aquaman was going to be ruined or not. So I didn't have a huge amount of faith in this film, but I was still somehow excited for it just because I'm a big Aquaman fan. As a big Aquaman fan, the idea of seeing Aquaman on screen, on the big screen in cinema was just like, that's amazing. And I think Jason Momoa, the guy playing Aquaman, looked like he could do a good role. Aquaman actually quite suits the kind of darker side of the DC universe, believe it or not. And I thought, let's see. And I was like, don't really expect the film to be particularly good based on Batman v Superman and all of that kind of DC Extended Universe stuff. Plus, of course, there were loads of issues with the actual production of this film as well. That I'll talk about in a second, maybe. But, I wanted to see whether Aquaman was good, was basically my reasons for going. So I went on the midnight showing on Thursday, and it was alright, I guess. It was meh. So, it wasn't an awful film. It wasn't, the worst thing in the world. But, if I had to give it a star rating out of 5 or something, I'd say it was like a 2.5. So it's not a good film either. That's a film that's like, I probably wouldn't see that. A 2.5 is probably not a rating you'd go and see. But it's a smack bang in the middle. The thing with the film is it's completely not trying, really. Or it feels like it's not trying. Or maybe it was trying and then it was trying to be something else and it never really kind of got anywhere. And I think, having watched reviews about this and having discussed it with people, for me, the thing that I find that really stands out about this film as its kind of defining feature is it didn't earn anything. It's not that the film didn't earn its existence. We've had a few DC Universe films, but narratively, it's just, we want this to happen, so let's make this happen, It's very much a film that explains itself to you as it goes. It's like, well, we're going to make this decision now, and that's what's about to happen. You see that happen, and off you go. I'll try and keep this as spoiler-free as possible, but, there are a few things that just kind of, that happen in the film, with no fanfare at all, and without earning it. And I think that, for me, is the big thing. There's a very big tonal shift in a character. So there's a particular character who, in Batman v Superman and in Man of Steel, is, he's supposed to be a refugee type character. And the way he's set up in both of those films is to be mistrusted and kind of alienated and all of that kind of thing. But in this film, we're just told by Bruce Wayne that he is what everybody needs. He is the, kind of the thing that everybody aspires to be. He brings hope to the world, all of that kind of stuff. Without earning it, we're told that and just expected to believe it, having not been shown that in either of the previous two films. And it is really very much a tell you, don't show you type of film. That with the plot, where the plot is concerned, there's a bit where the villain shows up after a thing has gone down, like a sort of, the characters have been moved from one location to another, and then at the end of that scene they go, oh no, villain took the thing, and then the villain took the thing. That's it. It's just like, we needed that to happen at some point in this plot. Let's just just say it happened over there, so we can move on to the next part of the story. And that for me was kind of disappointing. So it doesn't do anything that's actively terrible like Batman v Superman did. It wasn't like that there was something that really offended me about this film at all. It was just a case of, it was okay, I guess. It felt like a sizzle reel. Look at all of these scenes of cool characters that are going to get their own films later. And that was what it was. So for me, it was like, this is the character you want to see doing a thing you want to see them do. This is the thing you want to see this person do. This is the thing you want to see this person do, or whatever. And then nothing really happened. So for me, particularly Aquaman, as I say, I went because Aquaman, love Aquaman, big fan. He has a scene at the beginning where he sort of, you've seen it in the trailer, if you've seen the trailers, where he is approached by Bruce Wayne. That scene's quite good, gives a bit of kind of character to him, gives this kind of general personality. He leaves. Then there's another scene with him in Atlantis, which is quite good. And then really from that point on, he's completely superfluous. He's just a character that's there the whole time, and doesn't really have anything to do. And therefore it's just a sort of a background character almost. And actually I was kind of okay with that based on the quality of the film. And I was like, well, at least they didn't ruin Aquaman. They just didn't do anything with Aquaman. They just sort of left him there to sort of potter around and occasionally stab things in a fight scene or, whatever. And that's all he ever does. And that really can be said for most of the characters in it. Bruce Wayne is a glorified recruiter. He doesn't really do much. There's a few scenes where he's in a Batmobile or in a Batwing style thing or whatever. But, might as well have been remote controlled. The character's not doing anything. So why, bleh. You've also got, Flash, Ezra Miller as Flash. He's actually quite good, but really wound a lot of people up, particularly of my generation, because he's kind of millennially, and kind of, like, part of his character type is that he doesn't sort of know how to act around other people. So he's kind of irritating because he's kind of constantly talking because he's uncomfortable or whatever. And it just comes off as like this kind of, he's kind of there for humour's sake. And it's a little awkward in situations. Then you've got Cyborg, who actually I thought was alright, but he's a robot and he acts like a robot. So there's that to it as well. And then you've got Wonder Woman, who doesn't really have anything to sink her teeth into, because we know Gal Gadot can do a good job. I haven't seen the Wonder Woman film, but she doesn't really have much to sink her teeth into. When she has got some back and forth with Ben Affleck as Batman, they're really good together. They actually work really well. As the casting in this film is fantastic. All of the actors do a grand job. It's just that the plot is so kind of by the numbers. Here's a fight scene. Here's a transition scene. Here's a fight scene. Let's explain what just happened or what's going to happen next. Here's a fight scene. And that's all it is. So, it doesn't do anything. It just shows off the characters a bit and just you might go, oh, they look cool for future films maybe, but that to me is the extent of it. And I think, as I say, the really big thing is that it doesn't earn any of its moments. There's a particular sequence where a character suddenly is like, oh, I can't control this particular thing, and it wasn't set up that he couldn't control this particular thing, and it's just there to manufacture conflict, and again, it isn't earned. And it really bothers me that they haven't earned this stuff, because it could have been fine if they just spent a little bit more time explaining why someone wanted to use this box to do this thing, or why this character suddenly loses control of this, or why this character's archetype has changed and they're not so dour and stuff. They just quite happy and hopeful and joyful and all that kind of stuff all of a sudden without having shown us any transitional stages between that. So to me, there's lots of things like that where it tells you that this is what's going on and this is why it's going on, but doesn't earn that by showing you in a sort of narrative sense. So yeah, that was my sort of thing on that. I will try not to do a movie thing next, and another thing. So I won't do a review or whatever there. And another thing that I wanted to talk about is Bojack Horseman. So I today just finished the last episode of the most recent season of Bojack Horseman, which, for those of you who don't know, is an animated series on Netflix about a anthropomorphized horse living in a world of anthropomorphized animals and humans who just live side by side with, no fanfare about that. It's never explained. It's just a thing that this universe has. Who was a sitcom actor in the 90s. The theme song tells you everything. Back in the 90s, I was in a fairly successful TV show And then, yeah, and it's about him and his life as, like, in the present, as a washed up actor, basically. He's still got loads of money, he's kind of a Charlie Sheen type, he's not doing anything in particular, but he's got loads of money from that. You can afford to do that. He kind of considers himself famous. And like the first series is about him, like, kind of trying to get back into doing stuff, and he's writing an autobiography, where you're introduced to characters. The second season is then about him trying to get a film role again, or that kind of thing. But it's so good. It's a really adult animated series. Now, it takes a little bit of time to find its feet, so it's always good, but it took me a while to work out whether I actually liked it or not. And there's a very good reason for that, and that is that the characters aren't always likeable. Now, Bojack Horseman is quite a complicated character, but he's a bit of an arsehole. He's the kind of character that is just, he thinks he's better than everybody else. He's constantly going off on one, ranting about this, that and the other, and doing nothing to make himself better. He drinks a lot, he sleeps around, he treats people, as lesser, and all of the rest of that kind of stuff. So he's not a particularly likeable character, but he gets himself into such situations where you kind of want him to be better, and you can kind of tell that he wants to be better, and he doesn't like this fact about himself or whatever. And it goes from swings of really funny but clever humour. Usually it's sort of backgroundy stuff, like incidental humour is the best way to put it. So things happening with the idea that there's all these anthropomorphized animals that act kind of like animals, or the animals that they are in the real world, but in a human society where everything's anthropomorphized, so just stuff happens and it's just run-of-the-mill normal stuff, so nobody pays it any mind. Or there are references to things that happened in previous episodes that like come up really important in the plot, and they were just like a throwaway line earlier, that just kind of weave themselves together in a very clever, very good way. And the most recent season 4 of that, is absolutely one of the best seasons of animated telly I've seen. It might be, above that, rather than being one of the best animated, it's one of the best TV shows, Netflix shows that I have seen. I would definitely rank it as one of my favourite Netflix shows. And I fully encourage you all to go and watch it. It's not going to be everybody's cup of tea, because it does deal with some really dark stuff about kind of the human condition, and about kind of how we treat other people and that kind of thing. But it's so good. And I can't rant about how good it is enough, really. So I would thoroughly recommend you watch that on Netflix. In fact, why not? If you were thinking about going to see Justice League this week, leave it. Justice League will be out for a while. Watch the first couple of episodes of Bojack Horseman on Netflix. Spend the same amount of time watching that, and just see how good that show is and how good that show gets. So yeah, that is really what I wanted to talk about today. So I had a bit of a rant about two different things there. The other thing I wanted to talk about, I guess, I'll throw this at the end, like I did with the sort of about my phone at the end of the previous one, and another thing, is that I played a game recently. I got a board game, that is. And I like to sort of talk about board games, because board games are fun, and they've become quite popular recently. They've been repopularised as the idea of, coming as a thing to do as a group of people. Board games are quite trendy now. And I was playing Colt Express, which is really different, and it's a really interesting game where you play a bunch of bandits. Everybody is a different bandit. It's up to 6 players. There is an expansion for more, I believe. But you play 6 bandits trying to rob a train in a sort of Wild West style train robbery. And each character has a different ability. And it's all about laying cards and trying to work out what each person has done. Really interesting board, because there's a sort of card or board buildable train with all the carriages that you move up and down and along and pick things up. And we've played it twice, and both games have just been really, really good fun. So if you're into board games, Colt Express, I would recommend as something that might be worth looking into picking up. I mean, it's coming up to that time of year that I don't like to say until December, but it might be one of those kinds of gifts that someone might like. So there you go. But that's it. I'm going to call it there. Keep smiling. Thank you very kindly. I've been ThatJaymsWisdom, and I will see you next time for a Naked Truth. So thank you very much for watching. If you enjoyed this video, please like and subscribe, all of that kind of nonsense. Check out my Twitter for the Justice League review that I did. It's slightly longer than usual, but go to @James_Wisdom, that's James with a Y, and you can find all my film reviews there, weekly film tweet, once a week. Check you out next week.